Um, well, as people are logging on, I will at least start our intro. So, welcome. Thank you for logging on to our program this evening. My name is Matt Schumann. I am a programming librarian here at Cary. Before we begin, please let me know in the chat if you're having any technical difficulties and I can try to help. Otherwise, questions tonight, you can either do the raise hand function and I can allow you to be able to talk, or if you want to submit them via the Q&A, we can do it that way. This program is made possible in partnership with the Lexington Human Services and the generous donors to the Cary Library Foundation. With us this evening is Jessi Kneeland, pronouns they, them. They are a coach, writer, and speaker dedicated to helping people overcome the suffering associated with body anxiety, insecurity, and negativity, and to improve their relationship with their bodies. After working as a personal trainer for a decade in New York City, Kneeland became an IPEC certified life coach and launched a coaching practice centered around the meaningful work of self-acceptance. Their innovative approach allows them to partner with clients individually and in groups to help them find body acceptance, a strong sense of self-worth, and true confidence. They're committed to the pursuit of body neutrality, philosophy predicated on the idea of how we look is the least interesting and important thing about us. Their work has been featured in Women's Health, Shape, Pop Sugar, BuzzFeed, and more. And their TED Talk has been viewed by over 50,000 people. So they live in North Carolina with their partner and their cat. So now please welcome Jessi.
Thank you. It's funny to hear you read all of that because that was like what I wrote for my book. Yes, I do live with my partner and my cat. It felt very, very important to me that I include my cat in my bio. Hi, everybody. I am Jessi Kneeland, and thanks to that intro, you know that I'm a body image coach and I'm the author of the book Body Neutral, a revolutionary guide to overcoming body image issues. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about how I came to this work, because I think that I have a little bit of a unique story, and also it's important to understand why I think body neutrality is so important, given that it's not nearly as popular as something like body positivity. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So I came to this work over a decade ago now because I was working in the fitness industry as a personal trainer. And I realized at the time that most people were coming to me to solve a problem that fundamentally couldn't really be solved by changing their weight or changing the way that they looked. Most people wanted to get in shape or lose weight or whatever, alter how they looked in order to feel confident, secure, deserving, or good enough, or they wanted a solution to body anxiety, shame, hatred, insecurity. They were seeking relief from the constant chatter in their heads of their inner critic. They wanted to like and accept themselves and avoid rejection and feel worthy. They wanted to have access to all the stuff that society had basically promised them was on the other side of just if they could look the right way, then they would, almost automatically be offered things like love and happiness and belonging, fulfillment, relationship security, inner peace, tall order. But that is very much like what people were coming to me for. And the problem with this plan is it didn't work. I was working at a private gym in New York City with models and actors and truly some of the most conventionally attractive people in the world. And they were all struggling with the same exact insecurities and body image issues as everybody else. And I realized, like, okay, so body image issues clearly aren't actually about how you look, or else these people would be so happy and confident all the time, and everyone else would be miserable. But there were, examples that went against both of those things. And so I became obsessed with figuring out what are body image issues actually about. If it's not about how you look, what is it really about? And at the time, body positivity had just started to become popular. And people were starting to realize that maybe all of these unrealistic beauty and body ideals aren't like super good for us. And having bought into them myself at the time in my 20s, my early mid 20s, as when I was working as a trainer, I loved the idea of body positivity, that we could all just basically decide, like, screw those ideals. We are all beautiful. We can all love ourselves. We can all feel amazing. And yeah, it just seemed like a way better alternative to feeling insecure all the time. So I decided to get certified as a life coach and later on as a certified clinical sexologist, to hopefully help people be able to solve the problem that they were hoping would be solved by losing weight or getting in shape. But when I started working with clients, I was using that framework of body positivity because my clients were basically sick and tired of hating and obsessing over their bodies, and they wanted to love and accept them instead. It seemed like a way better idea. I thought it was a way better idea. And I was focused on helping them understand that, like our culture's beauty and body ideals, they're unrealistic, they're unattainable for most people, and that they're causing us harm. They're making us feel worse when we don't have to, because actually it's okay to look how you look. And at the beginning, I would say my work was empowering. It was inspiring. It was heavily focused on education and the normalization of bodies. And for some people, that did work really well. So, for example, I remember I worked with a young woman who felt so much shame and disgust about the appearance of her vulva that she couldn't be intimate with her new husband. And through our sessions, I discovered that she had literally never seen a picture or anything of another vulva. She didn't know what they were supposed to look like. So she assumed there was something wrong with hers. And I sent her to a photo gallery of a body positive photographer. It was like this amazing gallery featuring hundreds and hundreds of close-ups of vulvas that really like normalized and celebrated their uniqueness and their diversity. And overnight, basically, her shame and anxiety pretty much evaporated. So in her case, it was an issue of believing her body wasn't normal, discovering her body was normal, problem solved. But that was pretty rare. And in my coaching practice, I discovered that for most people, just learning that their bodies were normal, it might help, but it could only take them so far. And strangely, for me at the time, I was like, it sometimes actually seems to make people feel worse about themselves. Almost like once you discover that your body is actually normal and you still feel like obsessed with how it looks, then the only conclusion you can kind of draw is that you must be stupid or broken or crazy for caring so much, right? Or superficial or vain. Like it led to a lot of shame, made people feel pretty bad about themselves because once they were able to get the information they needed that your body is normal and the only reason you would think otherwise is because of these unrealistic beauty ideals, um, it ended up making a lot of people feel like, well, then why can't I feel differently? So I also started to notice that the pressure to love your body made a lot of people feel like failures when they couldn't get there. And it was almost like body positivity was becoming just one more unrealistic goal for people, especially for women. Like, not only are you supposed to look perfect, thin and hot and young and all of these things, but you're also supposed to love yourself unconditionally, no matter how you look. So a lot of people who were really struggling with body image issues after doing everything that they were told they were supposed to do by the body positive movement, like, practicing gratitude and repeating positive affirmations and focusing on what their body could do instead of how it looked and all of these things, they started to feel more ashamed and more hopeless and more like something was wrong with them, that they still cared. So at that point, I thought, okay, this can't be it yet. We haven't quite nailed it yet. And this is where body neutrality came across my conceptual realm. So when I first heard the term body neutrality, it was presented as a sort of alternative to body positivity. It was like a more realistic, more achievable alternative, both to hating your body and loving your body. And it felt like a kind of safe resting place for a lot of people. It offered a lot of relief to think that, hey, maybe you actually don't need to hate your body or love your body. Maybe you can just think about it less, or maybe it just doesn't need to feel that important. So I adopted it immediately. I immediately saw a positive impact on my clients. And I started saying, how you look is the least interesting and important thing about you. And I started teaching people how to untangle their sense of identity and their sense of self-worth from their appearance. Like immediate feedback, I saw so much positive change in my clients with this language, with these concepts, with just taking the pressure off, I think, to like fully and unconditionally feel amazing about how they look. Um, and also really helping normalize that, sort of integrating a lot of the body positivity stuff, normalizing that you might look a lot of different ways, and that's normal. Body diversity is a real thing. And the only reason that we don't know that is because of the messages that we're given. So I shifted the language that I was using when I talked about my work, and I made it clear that body neutrality is not about feeling more positive feelings about your body. It's about learning to feel less negative feelings. And I will say that people still wanted to love their bodies. This was not a sexy marketing message. In the beginning, especially, people did not like it. They would have much preferred if I was like helping people love their bodies and feel amazing and just, like what they wanted was sort of an equally dramatic opposite to hating their bodies. But I had learned through experience at that point with my clients that it was far more effective to focus on decreasing suffering and on reducing anxiety, shame, distress, stress, all these things than it was to try to focus on feeling, like adding amazing positive feelings. So even though the message was not as catchy, not as inspiring, just not as sexy of a marketing message as loving your body was, um, it took a while to gain momentum, but I knew what I was seeing in my coaching practice, and I knew that this was the only path that really worked and had the potential to work for everybody. So as I worked with clients, my understanding of body neutrality expanded and it deepened beyond what I had come to it thinking about. And I developed a framework. So not only is it now a goal, I mean, goal is a little bit of a weird word here, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but like basically it's not an endpoint, it's a process. But when we think about it as a goal, it's like it's the way you want to be able to approach your body, and it's the way that you get there. So it's both the goal and the framework. And I detail the system that I developed, the step-by-step system for how to get there. The whole framework is in my book. So I'm going to give you the definition that I use for body neutrality now. And this is not what everybody uses. So if you come across the word body neutrality and you've seen this and you're like, oh, I know exactly what that is, don't be surprised if there are subtle differences in how a lot of people, my peers even, we sometimes disagree about how we see this and how we define this. But my definition of body neutrality is the practice of approaching your body through a clear and unbiased and impartial lens, attempting to see and deal with only what's objectively true in the moment without moral judgment, interpretation, projection, added meaning, or undue significance. So it's a practice. It's the practice of seeing your body without a bunch of stuff added on top, just dealing with what's in front of you without interpreting it. So in that way, it's actually more similar to mindfulness than it is to like a lot of body positivity. It's about stopping the fighting and rejecting of reality and just being present with the truth of reality in the current moment, without layering false or subjective biases, beliefs, association, meaning, interpretation, whatever, on top of that. So in that way, it's about learning to stop fighting and rejecting the reality of your body and of yourself, to accept and be present with the truth of the moment, whether that reality is pleasant or unpleasant, and just letting it be what it is and using that objective information to make decisions. So body neutrality encourages you to view bodies, including your own and other people's, without interpretation or judgment. And I should probably say here, in case you're hearing this for the very first time, that that's super difficult. Like, that's why I wrote a book about it. It's a really hard thing to do because we've all learned to assign a ton of meaning, significance, judgment, interpretation to bodies, right? This is why I think of body neutrality as a practice rather than an end goal, is because we grow up learning there are good bodies and bad bodies. There are right bodies and wrong bodies, that if you have this kind of body, it means you're this kind of person. Like, we learn to place all of that meaning and interpretation on top of people and their bodies. So it's incredibly difficult to strip that stuff away and just see the truth of the moment, which is, this is my body and it doesn't mean anything about me. So the body neutrality practice, as I teach it, rests on two foundational beliefs. The first is that how you look doesn't mean anything at all about your character, your worth, your value, or what you deserve in the world. And the other is that you're unconditionally worthy of love, respect, kindness, and care, both no matter how you look and no matter how you feel about how you look. So this is an important one because I think a lot of times when people hear body neutrality, they think, oh, I'm supposed to feel neutrally about my body. But actually, it's not about feeling nothing. And it's not even about feeling neutrally about how you look. It's about recognizing that how you look doesn't mean anything about who you are, what your worth or value are, what you deserve. that you are unconditionally worthy of love and kindness and care and respect, no matter how you look. But it also makes space for you to feel however you feel about how you look, because we all grew up in a culture with all of this meaning, all of these associations, all of these interpretations and moralizing of one kind of body and another kind of body. So it makes sense for you to feel complicated feelings about your body. And I think with body positivity, a lot of times there's almost an expectation that you just stop feeling a certain way. Like you just feel good about your body, and any negative feelings that you might feel about your body are bad. And body neutrality, the way that I'm defining it here, it makes space for you to feel however you feel about your body, because it makes sense for you to feel a bunch of complicated things about your body. But the important thing to know inside of body neutrality is that how you look doesn't mean anything about you, and how you feel about how you look doesn't mean anything about you. Doesn't mean anything about your character, doesn't mean anything about what you deserve. And this is one thing I wanted to add here, is that there may be consequences to the facts of any particular bit of reality. So sometimes people will be like, "Well, how am I supposed to take care of myself if everything's okay?" Using those facts is great. Like, for example, if you eat a lot of sugar, you're likely to get a bellyache, and belly aches are unpleasant. It is completely okay to not like to have belly aches. So this information might be really useful. If you're just dealing with the information in front of you. I ate a bunch of sugar, I got a bellyache, I don't like belly aches. I don't like this. Um, so this information can be useful, because maybe knowing that you might not want to eat a dozen donuts in one sitting if you don't want to get a bellyache. But these are also objective facts that don't require a moral interpretation. And the moral interpretation would be tempting to say eating a dozen donuts is bad, right? Or it makes you bad. You've been bad. If you've given yourself a bellyache because you ate a dozen donuts, now something is wrong with you. So neutrality in this space says, actually, none of that means anything about you. These are neutral facts. One, you have a bellyache because you ate a bunch of sugar. Sometimes that happens. Two, belly aches kind of suck and you would rather not have one, right? Like you can view these facts through a neutral lens instead of moralizing lens. You can say, the true thing in front of me is that I don't want to do that again, or I'm upset that this is the reality I'm dealing with. All of that is okay and welcome inside of a neutral lens. What's not welcome, or the thing that's missing, is the moralization of either the facts themselves, like the idea that eating too much sugar is bad, or of who you are, the association to your worthiness, your character, or what you deserve. Like that doesn't, you don't need that. You can just look at the objective facts and make good decisions for yourself. So what I personally love about this definition and practice of body neutrality is that it's actionable, it's realistic, it's effective, and it makes space for our truest and fullest humanity, because it doesn't require us to be or feel or think or prefer anything other than whatever's true for us in that moment. And by doing that, by making that possibility open up, it expands our capacity to be present. It makes it possible for us to access more of the joy and fulfillment and pleasure and inner peace that we're seeking. And it shifts our attention also from the external to the internal, which is so just good for our mental health and relationships, to be able to see and value people, ourselves included, for who they are as people rather than how they look. It shifts what feels important from the external to the internal. That you as a person are worthy, that they as a person are worthy of respect and care and love and belonging, no matter how they look. It helps us focus on a person's humanity instead of their appearance. And because of all this, it fosters self-compassion, self-acceptance, self-worth, empowerment. It essentially ends up solving most of the problems that my personal training clients were hoping to solve by getting in shape. So that is why I love it. And that is why I teach it. And that's why I wrote the book. So body neutrality as a process. This is a really important one, because body neutrality isn't an endpoint and it's not a destination. And it's also not about adopting something brand new. It is actually the process of stripping away. It's the process of returning to our natural state. Because the truth is that none of us were born hating our bodies. In fact, none of us were born feeling unworthy or insecure. We only come to those things through our conditioning, our lived experiences. We come to those beliefs because we learn and internalize falsehoods in one way or another. And those falsehoods help us create a story that like we are unworthy, our bodies are unworthy, we're bad, our bodies are bad. And just to give you some example of really common falsehoods that lead to body image issues, it includes all kinds of falsehoods, including lies that are taught by our culture, like that people are lazy and other biased stuff, like conventionally attractive people must just automatically feel happy and confident. Like those are just straight up lies that we learn in our social conditioning in this culture. It also includes false beliefs that we hold about ourselves, like I have no innate worth or value, or I have to look a certain way in order for people to like me or treat me with respect. Those are things that those are stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. It includes beliefs about other people. Again, these are a lot of biases, like people who work out every day or achieve a specific look. They're just like better than people who don't. Or that what we consider attractive is like universal and objective and factual. And all of this is not true, but we come to internalize those ideas and those beliefs. Also, false rules and restrictions. So, an example of that would be like, oh, I can't start traveling or dating or asking for a promotion or whatever until I lose weight. False blame and responsibility that we place on our bodies. Like, a common one would be the reason I haven't found the one yet is because I'm not attractive enough, or, it's my fault that I was bullied. A lot of that stuff, it's like we almost outsource this our own problems and suffering to our bodies even though it wasn't really our body's fault. Like it's a false accountability there. And other sort of false grandiosities about our body's power. So like if I change this one thing about my body, I'll feel confident and happy and never feel insecure ever again, and nobody would ever judge me or reject me or anything. And false threats about our body's power too. Like if I gained weight, everyone would hate me and my whole life would fall apart. So these are falsehoods that play a role, right? These are falsehoods upon which our body image issues can thrive, because when we believe those falsehoods, it becomes very easy to be pretty upset with our bodies because it feels like our bodies are the problem. And that is the number one falsehood that all people who struggle with body image issues share, is the belief that your body is the problem. Uh, there is absolutely a sense, and this was what happened in the fitness industry. There's a sense that my body is causing my suffering, and if I fix my body, that will fix my suffering. And the fitness industry, the health and wellness industry, there's a lot of messages out there that love this idea, and they take advantage of people's insecurities and try to sell them the solution to the problem that they can't really solve. Uh, but it's also true that even inside of the body positivity world, there's some of that messaging like, okay, so your body is not the problem. It's how you feel about your body that's the problem. So we'll sell you a solution to that. And now, boom, like it's still sort of sitting on top of falsehoods. It's still relying on the idea that something about who you are in this moment, how you feel, how you look, whatever it is, that's the source of your suffering. So as I dealt with all of this and I realized, okay, so body image issues aren't about your look, about how you look. And in some ways, they totally are about how you feel about how you look, but we can't just ask people to change that. It doesn't work. Asking someone to just feel differently just doesn't work. It's the reason that nobody actually cheers anyone up by saying, cheer up. So I was like obsessed with this. I was like, well, okay, what is it really about? And what I discovered is that your body image issues exist as part of a subconscious strategy to try to help or protect you in some way, often in multiple ways. They always exist to try to get certain needs met, earn you something that you want, help you avoid something you don't want, solve a problem, or protect you from something, or help you cope. They're always trying to help you. So I came to start calling this subconscious strategy the hidden body image purpose. So this is the job or the task that you've inadvertently or subconsciously outsourced to your body. So often we don't even realize we're doing this, right? We just think, I hate how I look. We don't think, I hate how I look because I believe that if I looked different, I would no longer feel insecure and I'd be happy and all my problems would be solved. Like we're not usually conscious of this stuff. The hidden body image purpose is hidden. And it's often riddled with false beliefs about the meaning of bodies, right? It makes sense in its own way. It doesn't make sense necessarily in a logical, rational way, but it does make sense when you take into account what the subconscious is doing, which is to protect you, it does make a certain amount of sense. So, for example, if you believe a person's weight or appearance, it determines what their worth or value is in the world, or how safe they are in the world, or like what they deserve, then it would absolutely make sense for you to believe that you had to look a certain way in order to have worth or value or be safe or whatever, right? Like it does follow a certain amount of logic. It's just not usually the logic that we're aware of in our conscious minds. So it's easy to judge ourselves like, why do I care so much about this? I don't know what's wrong with me, but it always makes sense. And this is what I do with my clients. I help them understand what is happening. What is the hidden body image purpose? Because when you actually get into it, it always makes sense. It's always trying to protect you from something. It's always trying to help you in some way. And this hidden purpose, the fact that this exists, it's why you can't just usually decide to stop hating your body or start loving your body. Because some part of you believes that you need to change your body or hate your body or judge your body or reject your body or whatever in order to be okay in the world. So the key to body neutrality I figured out is identifying how your own specific and unique body image issues are trying to help or protect you. Essentially identifying your own specific and unique hidden body image purpose, and then addressing whatever that is in order to make that strategy, that subconscious strategy, unnecessary and obsolete. Because when no part of you, including your subconscious mind, feels like you need to look different or you need your body image issues anymore, they kind of just fade away. And that's not to say your preferences will change. You might always prefer to look different, kind of like you might prefer to make more money or live in a bigger house or drive a different car. You might always have those preferences, but those preferences, as we can see in other examples, don't usually have the power to like ruin your day or your life or like cause you complete suffering, misery, and panic attacks and all these things. So we know that something is giving body image issues like a lot of power. It's not just that you prefer to look differently. So the preference can stay, but when you've done this work to identify where that power was coming from, those preferences can just exist and not have the power to cause suffering or distress. So the big component of the work that I do with clients is helping them figure out their hidden body image purpose. And each individual's hidden purpose, it's unique, it's specific to them. You can have more than one. And it can be a little overwhelming in the beginning to understand like where to even start. So because of that, I created a system to help people more quickly and more easily sort of locate themselves on the map of what the heck could be going on underneath the surface here, sort of like to help you know where to start digging. I call that the 4 body image avatars. And these came from when I was working with clients, I noticed that most people fall into one or more of 4 main umbrella categories when it comes to the subconscious strategy that's like driving the power of their body image issues. And I personified those categories into what I now call the 4 body image avatars. And I created a quiz, like a self-assessment quiz, so that people can see where they score. And you can find the quiz in my book. But each avatar is sort of an archetype. So nobody's going to fit all of the things of each avatar, of any avatar, perfectly. And most people will resonate with certain aspects of each one. But by figuring out which one feels really dominant for you, which one you resonate the strongest with, you often have like a shortcut to figuring out, okay, so then what are my specific body image issues doing to try to protect me? How are they trying to help or serve me? And the goal of this is not like to diagnose you or pathologize you. It's just to give you insight into what might be going on under the surface, like why your body image issues might have so much power, so that you could start doing the work to put them out of business. And before anyone asks, because this is the number one question I get about this, yes, it's normal to have more than one. So I'm going to share some of the details about the 4. If you catch yourself being like, I'm that one, and I'm that one, oh shit, now I'm the third one too. Oh my God, I'm all of them. Like that is normal. I will say that most people tend to identify most strongly with 1 or 2. However, some people genuinely really do have 4 completely distinct, really powerful reasons to hate their bodies. It makes the work take longer and be a little bit more complex, but the actual work that goes into healing them is the same. So whether you identify just with one or with more than one, that is normal. It is just an issue. And I think that's part of what I like about them. They help normalize the experience, but they also give you a little bit of a more realistic insight into how long this journey might take. Like if you're just one of them, if you just identify with one, might be a faster, more straightforward, linear process to heal towards body neutrality. If you identify really strongly with all four, it's probably going to be a more complex, longer process for you to unpack all of that stuff and put all four sort of strategies out of business. So I'm going to go into each one. The first of the body image avatars is called the self-objectifier. And this is the body image avatar whose body image issues center around the belief that being attractive or desirable to others is the key to getting what they want and need in the world. So the self-objectifier tends to see their appearance as deeply connected to their worth or value to other people, and to think of attractiveness as the best or only option for getting the things they crave, including things like attention, validation, status, power, confidence, love, security, money, anything. In their mind, it is attractiveness that can get them those things. And sometimes it's only attractiveness that can get them those things. So the self-objectifier can be a person of any gender. They can be attracted to people of any gender, but they're most often women or femmes who have some history of being objectified, sexualized, or fetishized by others to some degree, because that's how we learn to view ourselves that way, is because other people have already viewed or treated us that way. The self-objectifier has often had a lot of experiences that have taught them to view themselves, again, often on a subconscious level, as decorative or sexual objects who exist for the pleasure, consumption, or gratification of others. Often men. Inside of patriarchy, through the male gaze, it's often men, but it could be anyone. The self-objectifier tends to use words like gross or disgusting to describe how they feel about their body or in themselves on a really bad, insecure body image day. They often feel a lot of pressure to conform to conventional beauty ideals and perform certain beauty labor to look attractive, like wearing makeup, dressing a certain way, doing complicated skincare routines or getting treatments or whatever. There's often, it's different for each person, but there's often a lot of pressure to uphold a certain aesthetic standard. Now, the self-objectifier's subconscious strategy can be about trying to earn them something specific in the realm of sex, intimacy, or love, which is kind of how we would sort of maybe default. We would imagine that's probably what's going on, right? Like if you want to catch the eye of a partner, you want to be attractive enough to catch the eye of a potential partner. That can sometimes be the case. Or it can be like to keep a partner from cheating or leaving, which is starting to give the body a lot of power and putting a lot of accountability on the body for like the security of the relationship, but still lives inside of that space of like secure attachment, sex, intimacy, or love. However, their strategy can also be about trying to earn them something else entirely. Like I said before, positive attention, safety, freedom, status, power. It's however each individual is going to have their own specific needs or desires that they're hoping attractiveness gets them. The thing that all self-objectifiers share is that it's attractiveness that they believe to be the key to get there. Next up, we've got the high achiever. So the high achiever is the body image avatar whose body image issues center around a desire to either use their body to increase their social status or to prove their goodness, their specialness or exceptionalism, or their worth, their worthiness and deservingness for things like respect, approval, and admiration of others. So the high achiever tends to be an avid rule follower, and they tend to be drawn to really strict and rigid rules and systems of right, wrong, good, bad. It makes them especially vulnerable to developing disordered relationships with food and exercise because they're drawn to systems of like concrete clarity. The rule is you do this or you're bad, and they'll often just be people who followed those rules or wish that they could follow those rules, put a lot of stake in those rules. The high achiever often grew up with a lot of pressure on them to succeed or excel and be exceptional in some way. And now in adulthood, it will often feel like they have to demonstrate that excellence or that exceptionality one way or another. And the body is just one way to do that. They could also have this show up in places like work, income, or, other things. Maybe they want to prove that they're exceptional in having a perfect family, or, an impressive career, or accomplishing certain specific things that are impressive to everybody. But often it comes down to their bodies. They're often self-described perfectionists and control freaks. And what's interesting is they often don't care at all about looking attractive. They can if someone is like a combination of these avatars, but sometimes they don't care at all about looking attractive. They just want a body that communicates to other people that they are good, that they have self-control and discipline, that they're special or exceptional or like superior in some way. It's about demonstrating to other people something about their character. And they tend to be especially afraid of people thinking that they're lazy or bad or wrong or stupid or lacking in willpower or work ethic or self-control. These are things that they are often trying to prevent from happening by looking a certain way. And the high achiever often believes that people sort of get what they deserve. So a lot of times their subconscious strategy is about using their body to either become deserving or to demonstrate, to show other people that they are deserving. Why? Because the hope would be that if that happened, they would automatically get the things they want most. So the strategy is sort of two-part in that way, right? They might be consciously aware that they just want social status, privilege, respect, admiration, external validation, and that's all true. That's all fair and valid, but there's often something underneath even that. Because the high achiever is not necessarily trying to seek those things for their own sake, but because of what they believe those things will get them or do for them. So when figuring out the hidden body image purpose, a high achiever often has to do like two levels. Like they figure out, oh, it's about wanting people to admire me. Why do you want people to admire you? Oh, it's because I'm hoping that if everybody admires me, I can get this thing or avoid this thing, or it'll protect me from something, or it'll earn me something. So it's that second sort of piece of it is usually where the deeper strategy is actually pointing toward. The third avatar is called the outsider. And the outsider is the body image avatar whose body image issues focus on wanting to fit in and to be accepted and to avoid negative attention. So the outsider is often a self-described people pleaser, caretaker, empath, or nurturer who strives to make everybody else happy and comfortable, even when it's to their own detriment. They tend to struggle to advocate for themselves, set boundaries, put themselves first. And the outsider is not usually trying to look better than anyone. They tend to be focused mostly on just fitting in and avoiding attention. Sometimes all attention, even positive attention, is what they're trying to avoid. But at the very least, avoiding negative attention. They just don't want to be excluded or rejected or judged or humiliated. They don't want to be treated cruelly, right? They just want to be okay. And the outsider often holds themselves or their bodies accountable for other people's behavior, believing that they are responsible for how other people treat them, and or believing that their bodies are responsible for how other people treat them, which is how they come to often have a super negative relationship with their bodies because they feel like their body made people treat them poorly. And this is often the case when there's been things like bullying or abuse, or, highly critical people in their lives who have really pointed out, oh, you're fat, you need to lose weight. Oh, you'd look so much prettier if this, that, and the other thing, right? When people are getting those kinds of negative critical bits of attention and they're feeling like this is my fault, it's my job to keep this from happening, of course they become super focused on avoiding those things by changing how they look, instead of saying, you should not talk to me like that. That's not an acceptable way to talk to me. And that's you have done something wrong here, not me. That's not an okay thing to do. So the outsider's subconscious strategy is usually based on one of two misguided beliefs. One is that their body or appearance has the power to earn them the social connections that they want. So this includes like social safety, belonging, community, nourishing friendships, a feeling of, a deep connection with people. Or they believe that that their body has the power to protect them from the negative social experiences that they're afraid of. And this is where it's like judgment, rejection, humiliation, exclusion, right? They're just trying to avoid those things that they have associated with being their fault or their body's fault. So either way, it's a false belief that their body has the power to either like make them deeply feel connected to other people or to prevent them from feeling painfully disconnected from other people. And the outsiders often consciously only focused on fitting in, but their subconscious strategy is actually about what it is that they think fitting in would get them. So again, like the high achiever, there's sometimes two levels to it. Like, all I want is just to fit in. I just want to be seen as normal. I just want to be accepted. But actually, what is it that you think those three things would get you? Maybe it's the ability to relax deeply around other people, to be authentic, to put yourself first for once, to stop trying to mind read what everybody else thinks and feels about you and just be present, to express your full authentic self without worry. Like, those are the things that we often associate with, I'll be able to get those once I fit in. And the outsider tends to be focused on trying to fit in to get to that sort of second layer. And that's what their subconscious strategy is really about. And the last of the body image avatars is called the runner. So the runner is the body image avatar whose body image issues and their related food and body behaviors can be viewed as extremely clever and adaptive coping mechanisms that the runner developed at some point because they needed them on some level to function and survive. So the runner might feel like their body betrayed them at some point or use their body as like a scapegoat for their pain and suffering because it feels more manageable, more tangible, or more in their control than whatever the real cause was. And obviously we can kind of intuitively understand that it doesn't really work, but it does have a benefit to do this. You might be so miserable because you hate your body that you're like, I don't think this is an easier strategy. But hating your body at least feels like something you can do something about. Whereas hating living in a world that feels unsafe, living in a world where you experienced trauma, living in a world that feels terrifying and out of control, on some level, even if they're making you miserable, hating your body can actually be the sort of preferable of the two. So, a lot of times, the subconscious strategy for the runner is to make their pain manageable or tangible or feel like it's sort of in their control, even if it's not, even if it still sucks. There's a reason that that's the preferable choice. And the runner will often feel super disconnected from their own bodies, their own feelings, often emotionally. They won't know what they're feeling. They won't be able to pick up on cues like, am I hungry, full, tired, sad? It often just feels like, I don't know. I don't have that information. And they'll often have a very adversarial relationship with themselves and their bodies, like a lot of inner conflict. They may be drawn to control everything, including their bodies, as a strategy for feeling safer and calmer or decreasing anxiety. And then also maybe kind of hate themselves for the coping mechanisms that they feel like they can't stop doing. Like, I don't know why I can't stop scrolling. I don't know why I can't stop eating. I don't know why I can't make myself eat. I don't know why I can't stop working out or get myself to the gym. Like, there's a lot of times the runner has a lot of inner conflict because they tend to feel super critical of themselves for their own survival strategies that feel out of control because they're not conscious. And while the runner may have a long list of external reasons for their feelings of not being safe or feeling anxious or feeling stressed out or whatever it is, feeling guarded maybe, the underlying cause tends to be that they're subconsciously afraid of something that lives inside themselves. So even though they might think like, I just don't want anyone to abuse me or I don't want to be discriminated against, that it's easy for the runner often to name the thing that's in the outside world. And it's much harder for them to name that actually what feels dangerous to them, even though those are scary prospects, the dangerous thing is they don't trust themselves to handle it if that took place. They don't feel safe facing or feeling whatever that would bring up in them. So they're actually often just more afraid of themselves. So their subconscious strategy is to cope and survive. But the dangerous thing that they're trying to and kind of feel like they have to constantly keep running from is themselves. And body image thoughts and feelings and behaviors, they offer endless possibilities for running, numbing, repressing, avoiding, and staying distracted from themselves, which makes it the perfect solution, even if it makes them miserable. It's an incredibly adaptive, convenient solution to the problem of not wanting to be with yourself, not wanting to face or feel pain or discomfort. So the runner often struggles with compulsive coping and numbing behaviors, both in terms of body related stuff. So, for example, like eating or exercising, and outside of that. So maybe substance abuse or shopping or scrolling or whatever. And it's all for the same reason, which is basically that they cannot tolerate the experience of being present in their own bodies, being with themselves. They're afraid of what they would discover if they really let themselves feel all of what's going on inside them. Um, and just to wrap this up really quickly, I want to give you like the context for how to use the avatars to move toward body neutrality, because my hope is that all of this illuminates the fact that if you're struggling with body image issues, there's a reason. You're not crazy. You're not superficial or vain. You're not weak or dumb. There's a subconscious strategy at play. Your body image issues exist for a reason, and they are trying to help or protect you. And hopefully this starts to help you maybe connect some of the dots, like, maybe I'm this one, maybe I'm that one, and point you toward the idea that there is a subconscious strategy at play. What might it be for you? Because again, everybody's is different. I've just given you 4 pretty major umbrella categories, but the work that surrounds this to move toward body neutrality is just to start within that container once you've sort of identified which avatar you resonate with, and then get super specific and detailed. What is it specifically, if let's say you're a self-objectifier, what specifically might you believe on a subconscious level that being attractive would get you or protect you from? If you're an outsider, what specific thing are you either hoping that looking the right way to fit in would either help you get or help you avoid? Right. So, like, once you know your avatar, you can start digging into your hidden body image purpose. So it's really only the beginning. Sometimes I feel like I don't even want to talk about it this way and talk about the avatars without being able to give you all the context of the next steps of in my book. It's called the body neutrality blueprint, because I really want you to be able to see how it all fits into the actual work that you do next. But for the sake of a short talk like this, I just want you to see it does make sense. And this is where you start. So once you can answer which avatar, where are you on the map, do you resonate with, then you get to figure out what specifically your body image issues are doing to try to protect you, to try to get you, earn you, how are they trying to help you? That's your specific hidden body image purpose. You can have a bunch of them. You can have one of them. You can have a couple of them. Most people have a couple, I would say. And once you know that, you get to do the rest of the work in the blueprint. So you can go through the steps and figure out, kind of working backward from, well, what would have to be true for me to no longer rely on this subconscious strategy to feel okay in the world? What would have to be true for me to put my body image issues out of business, basically? So hopefully that feels inspiring a little bit, normalizing. And I would love to, yeah, take questions if anybody has any.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions, you can do the raise hand function, and I'll be able to let you be able to talk that way. Or if you want to submit them via the Q&A or chat, whatever you prefer, whatever you're most comfortable with. Um, Maybe while people are typing or getting ready
Yeah.
to ask a question, I just want to say I love that you've published this book and talk about the system with the 4 avatars, and that you push these messages, especially when we're bombarded with, like you said, like ideal body images in media or magazines that depict unrealistic modes of like
Yeah.
being or mental health. And it's interesting too that you compared it to like mindfulness, because there seems to be like elements of like mindfulness meditation practice or acceptance and commitment therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
like a reframing, which like what you're kind of doing. One question I wanted to ask after all that is, do you find that humor helps at all with practicing body neutrality?
Oh my gosh, do you know nobody's ever asked me that?
Really?
I love that question. So, what I'll say is, in my practice as a coach, I use a lot of humor because I think this stuff gets so heavy so fast. Like, we are diving into the realm of subconscious pain and suffering. And I think it's very easy when you take all of that as seriously as sometimes it absolutely needs to be. It's easy to get super bogged down and not feel like there's even a point to continuing on. I think humor and levity and curiosity, like, ooh, sometimes if a client's like, so I did this thing and I don't know why I did it, I feel very stupid. And I'll be like, ooh, tell me more. Like that's fascinating. Let's figure it out. Because curiosity and humor, they remind us of the human part of this experience. Like, that we are a full context of a human at all times, even when we're dealing with stuff that's super heavy. So, absolutely. And I feel like each person can kind of choose how they want to include humor in their process. I would never push it on someone and be like, you should make jokes about that. But, there's just, I think there's something very natural when you bring humor and curiosity into it. It's like the reason that a lot of like drug assisted, like MDMA type assisted therapies really work because when you are able to both do the super hard thing and look at the super hard stuff and feel kind of okay about yourself in the world, like that's where really good stuff happens. Otherwise, sometimes we just get bogged down and it's too hard.
Yeah, yeah. I asked too because like, personally, it's like I feel like I use a lot of like self-deprecation in my
Mm,
dealing with like issues I have, but obviously sometimes self-deprecation can go into like a body negativity realm as
true.
opposed
Yeah.
to but it's like a line that I feel like try to understand how to toe more, and I look forward to trying out
Yeah.
some of the things that you said. I also thought of oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you please
Oh, I
start.
just wanted to say, I think I call people out with self-deprecating body stuff.
Okay.
Like I make everybody uncomfortable at a party, I will say that. If somebody's like, "Oh, ha ha ha, I have to lose weight. I'm so gross." I'll be like, "So that seems like something's going on there. Can you tell me?" I'm like, I make it awkward because I don't want it to just stand where the joke is that there's something wrong with you. But I actually really love at times being able for if that's the first time that you're like kind of freeing yourself of shame, like let's say you never felt like it was okay to make that kind of comment before and now you're sort of like outing yourself like I know how I look. There's something really magical about that. So I think it depends on who's doing it and how. But I think it can be wonderfully healing. And if someone's doing it in that kind of default, like the joke is I suck, I will call them out.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I you're kind of talking about this too of like that this is like a reaction to like body positivity where that's not always successful
Yeah.
for people. And I was thinking of it as like a sort of like arc, like you go from like a men's health or women's health magazine that's like,
Yeah.
do this to get shredded abs, and then you're not happy, and then,
Yep.
oh, I'll try being positive, not happy. So this like approach is maybe the end of that. But I was also thinking while you're talking of like this almost coincides with there's like I don't know if there's a larger cultural shift maybe, but like I was thinking of that term that was like viral 2 years ago of like goblin mode, or what, do you know that one? Where it's like you kind of just are like a little hedonistic, and you don't
Yes.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
not caring about your body image. Far different
Right.
than what you're saying, but maybe there's like other threads leading towards it. I
Yes.
don't know. I'm just conjecturing.
I would agree. I think like especially during the pandemic, I saw what was like kind of an interesting thing was just a lot of people avoiding mirrors. And I was like, man, this is so close to body neutrality, right? Like there is something about this that really feels like it should work, but I couldn't at first I was like couldn't put my finger on why it wasn't feeling quite it. And fully support people not looking in mirrors if that gives them some relief. Like that can be a valuable part of the healing process. But I think there's something about like even with goblin mode, there's something about when it's not sustainable, but we're treating it like it's the end as opposed to treating it like I'm going through a thing, which is
Yeah,
probably more true for pretty much every part of life. Like I'm going through a thing. I'm not looking at
yeah,
mirrors. I'm eating everything in the house. I'm in goblin mode. Like that I love. But I think sometimes that gets misinterpreted as like this is just who I am now, and that
yeah,
feels
yeah,
not quite it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, have you had any clients who you had to sort of like specially strategize to fit any challenges they had with this like sort of system or in accepting body neutrality?
I mean, everyone, like,
Yeah,
so part of what was really hard as I was writing the book is when I started the process, I was not even sure that I could do it. Because at that point, I was like, this is impossible work to make general. It's so specific to the individual that there's no way to talk about it in broad patterns. So a lot of what I had to do is like break down what I was doing with everyone and then give a million examples. So my book is full of like case studies because there I just couldn't think of another way to talk about it without leading people in the wrong direction. So everyone's got to make it work for themselves because everyone's hidden body image purpose and all of these things, lived experiences and layers of trauma or marginalization, they're all unique to them. So, yes, I would say the biggest difference I notice is between people with very privileged bodies and people in very marginalized bodies. The I believe that body neutrality can work for everyone and anyone, but the end result is incredibly different if basically what you're realizing through the process is there's nothing wrong with me, but oh my God, there's something wrong with this system. It's not exactly better. There's a lot of grief and rage that lives in the realization like people bullied me for how I look, and they're going to continue doing that literally no matter what I think. That's just a thing I have to deal with because our society has said it's okay. Like, that's insane. That feels horrible. There's something so brutal about that end result being like
Yeah.
an acknowledgement of reality that this reality sort of sucks for you. So I feel like, yes, there is a huge difference depending on a person's lived experience as to how the journey looks and also where it takes you. But when you are no longer blaming yourself and holding yourself accountable for other people's behaviors, there is a peace and groundedness that can live inside you if you are mistreated or discriminated against or whatever, where you go, I know I'm worthy, and you were cruel. That wasn't okay. And even though I can't stop other people from doing it, I don't blame myself or my body for that. So it's a big shift. It's just not the shift we wish for, right? I wish I could make everybody just never be treated horribly again.
Yeah. Um, my my follow-up question might be just ending up with the same kind of answer, but I'll ask it
Yeah,
anyways.
sure.
Do you find that this is something that can like apply to people of like all ages, from like a teenager to 75, 80-year-old, or people also with like health issues that may
Yeah.
impact their self-perception, or people even in like, not to go in a darker realm, but like
Yeah.
people in like a terminal care or something where it's like uh, maybe there's not as much like time that the person has
Yeah.
or do you find that it can apply across that whole
Yeah.
spectrum?
So that's a great question. I will say yes. And I have my doubts about the younger generations. I'm not going to lie to you. Mostly because I don't get to work with them as often, honestly. Like the lower end range of my clientele is usually about 20. So I just don't get to work with teenagers as much as I would like. And I do feel like with the newer generations, what they're exposed to and what they're fighting is so unique.
Mm,
And I do still believe it works. I don't have quite as much experience applying it there and understanding the exact battles that they're fighting that we did not have to. So that's one thing. But yeah, I've worked with all ranges up through 80s, and it is ultimately the same thing. When it comes to health issues, especially chronic health, or as you said, terminal health, I think it very much goes back to that idea of like what the end goal of a person in a marginalized body is going to end up feeling like compared to someone in a privileged body. Someone in a privileged body who discovers, hey, none of this was my fault. They might just move through the world feeling amazing, and that can be awesome. Someone who is like, okay, so it's not my fault, but people are still going to like mistreat me. That's not super amazing. It is better. It's just like I said, it can only take you to a certain point of relief. And sometimes there's something very depressing about really dealing with reality. It's almost better to be like, this is my fault. And if I lost weight, it would change, right? Like there's a
mm.
reason we have these strategies because it
Like it's
makes life feel,
easier,
yeah, a little bit
easy.
better, easier, more manageable, more in
Mm.
our control, something, right? And I think the same is true with chronic health stuff. Or I've worked with a lot of people who either couldn't get pregnant or lost pregnancies, that kind of thing. And it's like just the impact that that has on your relationship with your body because of everything it brings up is
Mm.
massive. And the end result is not feeling amazing. It's massive grief, right? It's massive self-acceptance of the fact that you are in a state of rage about the injustice that you've had to experience by having this body. Like there's a lot of really hard stuff that lives in that. But again, once you make that stuff conscious, instead of it living like below the surface and you're just like, I hate how I look, it does take a lot of the pressure and power out of it, the big sting, the feeling of craziness. And it grounds you where you're like, oh, I'm just sad. Oh, I'm really sad. Like it's still painful, but at least it's the real thing that hurts now instead of like, I could avoid being sad if only I changed this thing about myself. It's like it's not quite as frantic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does make sense. That's really interesting. I just want to give another moment. If there's any
Yeah.
other questions, feel free to send them in or unmute yourself. Um, but if not, I just want to thank everyone for coming and thank you, Jessi, for sharing so much of this tonight with us. Her their book is available on. I put the links in the chat, but and I'll send them on the recap email. But
Awesome.
jessiekneeland.com, and the library does have a copy as well. But thank you again, Jessi.
Amazing. Thank you, Robin. And thank you everyone for listening. Like, feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Jessi Kneeland if you're like processing this over the next couple days and come up with a question. I feel like I just gave you so much information. Um, but yeah, I love talking about this stuff and it was thrilling to be here. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.